to quite a few issues, describe them as being in that category where you don't know anything about a subject until suddenly you need to know everything. It's a sort of almost a case of being ambushed by life or by fate, by reality. I came up with it when we were talking about care homes, finding a care home for a family member. You know nothing about it. You might have heard radio phone-ins about it or read the odd article, but unless you actually need to find a bed for your mum, you don't know anything about it. And then suddenly you need to know everything. I read a story yesterday that is absolutely in the same category. Ceri Menai-Davis, who is with me in the studio, lost his little boy, Hugh, to a very, very rare form of cancer. But the reason I mention that phenomenon of not knowing anything until suddenly you need to know everything, well, it is because what you discovered, Ceri, in the starkest of circumstances, is that when you need to press pause on your life, on your livelihood, on everything, to care for a profoundly sick family member, in your case, I'm so sorry, your little boy, there's no help there at all.
No, and it's something that you think that would be there, and we talk about everyone helping the most vulnerable in the country, and when you're thrown into it, you could be just having a normal weekend and your child displays a symptom and you're thrown into all of a sudden being told that your child has cancer, as we were, and then to realise that actually one parent has to be a full-time caregiver, and it was Frances, my wife, and then I had to share work with looking after a sibling as well. You think, well, then you've got to worry about how you're going to pay your mortgage, how you're going to pay your bills. You're losing 50% of your income, and as I mentioned to you before we come on, if you're bringing a child into the world, you're covered with maternity and paternity. You can go back to your job. You can get allowances from the government. But if you have a chronically ill child or a terminally ill child, there seems to be a loophole where there is nothing available for those parents. And what we're doing is trying to create fill that void to make sure that they are supported.
It is extraordinary, and you factor in as well, of course, the need for treatment. And in Hugh's case, a 100-mile round trip, I think, that you and Frances would sort of share or alternate because you had to look after your
well, we did it during the second lockdown. So Hugh was diagnosed in October half term, and in the space of 7 days, he went from sitting up, eating a jam donut in his bed to being on oxygen, receiving chemotherapy to save his life, basically. And you're thrown into it, you're given the cancer 101 immediately, and obviously your body, you're just in a different planet completely. And it's just... it's hard. When we were like ships in the night, 5 days on, 5 days off, we never saw each other and very isolated, and it was a bit obviously very traumatising at the time.
Yes, deeply lonely during the worst time of your life. The support of the person that you need.
I think even if a parent, we speak to parents now through the charity that are going through it now, and it's lonely for them now, but we obviously went through it during COVID where we couldn't see anyone, and which was completely isolating, and we were lucky in a sense that furlough was around and introduced by the government at that point, and so that's what we come up with, the idea of why they can introduce it then, and why can't we introduce it now to help those who have to go off work without any reason whatsoever apart from look after a sick child.
So it presented itself in a sense while you were suffering the problem. The solution presented itself. If you can do it for people who can't work as a COVID, can you please do it for people who can't work because of chronic illness?
And the model is already there.
Yes.
And then so there's two elements to it really. Those that are employed, the onus is put on the employer. There is no set parameters of what they should be doing, so they don't know what to do if a parent has to go off and look after their child. And also if you're self-employed, there is nothing anyway.
Well, the same with COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you're also put into a position where if you're earning money, you can't claim universal credit. So there's means tested, so if you are having a job, you can't go off and then claim that, and yeah.
It's that loophole's the right word to use, because no one wants it. This system doesn't make sense. No one's going to be going into bat to defend it, and no one has deliberately imposed it upon families like you. It's just that it's never really come to light before you...
No, exactly, and I think, and that's obviously the case when people do go through this, sometimes they do grieve in silence and not want to go through it and fight it. And obviously we found the loophole, and we speak to parents, countless amounts of parents that we've encountered on our charity, and we've even spoken to parents who have had to sell their homes, sell their clothes, make a choice between eating for themselves and feeding their child. And people just don't understand, it's not just the fact that you're leaving work, it's the incurred cost of looking after a sick child. So in Hugh's case, he obviously had a rare form of cancer, and he had the most aggressive chemotherapy that you could have, which meant that his immune system was basically zero when you'd go home. And we did it during a pandemic, pre-vaccination, so we were very careful.
Crikey.
But also, you have to heat your home during the winter. The cost of living has made that a fortune for parents, because a damp home means respiratory viruses, potentially. You have to completely sanitise your house all the time to prevent going into hospitals and these stays. And eating as well for parents. Like, I'm 6 foot, 110 kilos. I like food. Not in a, well, there should be less of it. But
Shouldn't we all, mate?
Yeah, but the Deliveroo fees, I was spending £2,000 on Deliveroo, I calculated, for 6 months.
Good Lord.
So it's just those added costs that aren't accounted for.
And you took the story to your MP. We spend a lot of time giving MPs a tough time on this programme. It's quite nice to come across one who's got it right.
Sir Oliver Heald, who's my MP for North and East Hertfordshire, do you know, they do get a bad rap, and I do listen to the radios, and everyone does give him a hard time sometimes, but you know, I will give Sir Oliver every credit that he has really gone out of his way to really help us. When I first spoke to him, he got me on a Zoom call within a week. This was just before Christmas, just about a month after Hugh died. And we went from discussing this, and we introduced me to the Health Minister, Edward Arger, and we went from stage to stage. And then we introduced this as a private members bill in June, and it didn't progress any further. And then on 6th of December, we went to Prime Minister's questions. I've got an interest in politics, and I said, I'd love to see it one day. And as I walked in, he said, I'm going to ask the Prime Minister a question today. I was like, wow. And then Rishi Sunak full-heartedly supported us, which he's done. My wife and I burst into tears in the gallery, as you can imagine. It's just emotions. And then so it's come to today where Sir Oliver introduced it as a private members bill, and fingers crossed our second reading is today, and then this goes through to the committee stage.
And then hopefully becomes law.
Yeah, so what we're asking, I don't know the intricacies of Parliament, but I think we're asking in the initial stage a report from the Treasury on the merits of giving parents in our position, and lots of families, there's 4,000 children a year that are diagnosed and have to go in hospital for more than 2 months. We're asking for them to give us the merits of offering them a financial support system. And it's not just a credit that we're asking for. There is a lag which is not known until you're in it. So you can't claim disability living allowance till your child has been 3 months diagnosed, and then it can take 3 to 6 months to come in after that. So
that's
there's a
tough,
6 to 9 months lag between receiving anything, and that's including your blue badge, which you need to then pay for parking with.
Sure, some families can absorb that, many families can't.
And that's the stories that we hear all over the country.
What's the name of the charity, Ceri?
It's Never You.
Why is it called It's Never You?
My wife, unfortunately, was the person that had to receive all the bad information on the 23rd of October. Because of COVID, she was the only one allowed into the hospital. I was allowed in there at 4 a.m. when they told us that, you know, Hugh had cancer. Yeah. And she turned around to me and said, you know, you always think it's someone else, it's never you. And there'll be someone listening to this today, we're thinking, God, those parents, I feel so sorry for them. And I hope to God it's not them. But, you know, I was the same. I'd listen to broadcasts and things, and you read newspaper articles about childhood cancer, and we did everything we could for Hugh, and can't blame yourself or anything, but it's just one of those things that happened, and it's always someone else. It's never you, and that's what we called it. It's never you. You don't know what's around the corner.
And there's a shared determination here to ensure that some good comes out of your tragedy.
And Hugh's Law, which is it's known as in the media, and obviously it's got the terminology in the Parliament, but Hugh's Law, which is commonly known as, will give us a legacy for Hugh. And it's given me and my wife a purpose to carry on and create a legacy for him. And, you know, having the messages from this morning about parents just messaging us saying, you know, this is so much needed. I've longed for someone like you to come along and push
thank you. But I mean, on behalf of all of those parents, both the ones who have been through it, are going through it, and as you and Francis's words remind us, the ones who have no inkling whatsoever that actually they're going to, because it'll happen today and tomorrow and the next day, won't it? To families, they'll be hit by these bombshells.
Well, I think it's 5 a day in the UK, children a day under the age of 14 that are diagnosed with cancer every day. And it's not just cancer patients, this is all children with chronic illnesses. So
Tell me a bit about Hugh.
How would I describe him? Most courageous, brave child you'd ever meet. Most genuine, loving boy. On his 6th birthday, which was 18 days before he passed away, he didn't fancy his cake. He chose it and then didn't want it. And then, but he was starting to feel a bit unwell. But out of that, his little brother Rafe was a bit upset he didn't get a present. So Hugh gave him his birthday present, said, you can have it, Rafe, to play with. And all the way through Hugh's treatment, he was just like a beacon of strength. And for example, when he first got diagnosed, they geared up for all the biopsies and having a Hickman line inserted. And, you know, as a parent, it's the worst thing you could ever witness, your child being put under for an operation and all these things, and it just goes so quickly. And they give you a little buzzer So, you know, he's in recovery after he goes in. And I remember my wife, Frances, she was the one who had the buzz. I said, I couldn't handle it for anxiety reasons. I said, so you take the buzz. Anyway, he buzzed it. He came into recovery, and I remember sitting in the hospital room, just waiting for him. Is he going to be asleep? Is he going to be in pain? He walked in, sitting upright, eating a jam donut in bed. And I thought, right, if he's going to be like this, then that's the way we're going to be. And from that moment, Fran and I made a vow that we'd never shed a tear in front of him.
Right.
And we just said, like, if you're a 5-year-old in your bed with wires and doctors point needles in you, what would you want? You'd want your mum and dad to be strong in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's what we've made a vow to do. And the age of him made him ignorant to it.
Sure.
And that was the beauty of what his age was, made him ignorant, and it helped us in a way. But he was just a complete, to coin the phrase, a legend.
So are you, actually, and your wife. How can people find out more about the work that you're doing, or indeed, if they need to, how can they get in touch with the charity?
Yeah, of course. So our website, itsneveryou.com, but also we're quite got a following on Instagram, it's.neveryou charity. But also part of the charities, I built the first children's cancer platform, like a social media app. So if parents are struggling with their child under cancer treatment, they can download our app on the platform, on Apple and Android, called the Children's Cancer Platform. And we have nearly 350 families using it now, talking to each other about how their experiences are going. And I think that's the greatest thing, is creating a community where parents can share and support each other for mental health reasons. So
that's incredible, isn't it? Because as we touched on, the loneliness, partly compounded in your case by COVID, but just to know that other people are going through what you're going through must be a great comfort.
It is. And also, doctors can only tell you so much, and nurses, and they're going home to a healthy family. And one of the things that I wanted to come off was Facebook, because my first world problem was someone else's nightmare at that time. And Google's full of misinformation. You can type "the world is flat" and it comes up with 20,000 pages. And I never wanted to get misinformation. So one of the things I wanted to do was create a safe space with correct information where parents can go on and know that everyone else around them have experienced the same problems. And that's, you know, it's like being in the kitchen at the hospital where you're asking, oh, what's the best shampoo for my child's bald head? I know that sounds gross, but what's the most sensitive one? And what do you put on their NG plasters on their face to make sure it doesn't burn them? And that's the sort of conversation that you're thrown into.
Have you always been like this? Have you always been someone who looks
mad?
No. We're not talking about politics. Have you always been someone who tries to help others?
I would always say I've tried to, but since Hugh passed away, it's made my wife and I realise that, you know, you get loads of requests for charities and stuff in the work that I'm in, and I always do like charity golf days. I'm always asked, and you kind of looked upon them like, oh God, here's another charity, and think, but you don't realise actually what charities do until you're in that moment and how much they support you, because they do prop up every government service and public service, which is sad in a way, but charities are only formed really just because of someone's bad experience or the need to choose something. But I will say that since Hugh has passed away, it has given me a purpose to help others in that same position, because we went through hell. Other parents are going through hell. They don't need to go through hell, because we can try and help them in a way. And there's many other charities like me out there that are doing this, and all because of they're grieving, or they find that themselves they need to change something. But yeah, it does give you an eye opener. I turned 40 last year, and I certainly didn't expect when I was 40 to have lost a son and to have a charity and to push a law through Parliament. So things turn quite quickly, as you know, and it's one of those things that you're just thrown into, but you have to react to it.
You honour Hugh's memory in a quite extraordinary fashion.
Thank you.
You really do. And off to the Commons after this?
Yeah, going straight after this now, yeah.
You're going to burst into tears again, aren't you?
I don't know if I can dance in the chamber, but I'll do something.
Ceri, thank you. Ceri Menai-Davis, whose charity It's Never You is doing, well, as you now know, doing absolutely extraordinary work, and you've won an awful lot of new admirers as well. Not that you care, or not that that's why you're here, but I can tell you that you have. Thank you, mate. And good luck. It's 11:03.
James O'Brien.